Canadians who watch this program know I'm not much for conspiracy theories. However, there was a comment made in a recent video that I thought bared investigating because we know this country's breaking. Canadians are drowning in debt, seniors can't afford groceries, there's a drug problem coast to coast, and young people have been priced out of the future. And throughout it all, there appears to be one woman who walks into Parliament always calm, composed, endlessly polite, and thanking everyone around her like she's your sweet next door neighbor. But don't let that tone fool you, because just like Verbal Kint in the Usual Suspects movie, it's an oldie but a goodie, hopefully you've seen it, sometimes the most unassuming person in the room is the one who's pulling every single string. Let's go.
Welcome to Bakes on Things.
Welcome to Bakes on Things. I'm Chris Baker. The woman we speak of today is Christa Freeland. See, she's not just Minister of Transport, not just Minister of Internal Trade. She's the godmother to the Prime Minister's child, and it goes vice versa. She's the strategist behind the foreign aid that we see, the quiet authority behind economic lockdowns during COVID, and she's the only one who wears a strange symbol, the trizob ring, the trident of Ukraine, to official government sessions. Take a look.
I'm going to give you a two-part answer there. Part one is I am so proud to be the minister who got TMX built. I referred very intentionally in my 2024 budget speech to the Golden Weld, which finished the building of that pipeline. Mr. Speaker, I am not going anywhere.
Now, that's not just cultural pride. That is a signal, a flag planted in our own House of Commons, and in that case, our Senate. And if you're wondering how we got here, it starts with her gleaming smile, Mr. Speaker. But it ends with a cold realization that we may have actually missed the liberal mastermind all along. You see, this is not just a ring. That trizob ring isn't an accessory. It's an emblem. Now, it's an emblem of loyalty, of legacy, and of Freeland's quiet, deliberate control. Yes, she does have a history with Ukraine, but she wears it at Senate meetings, at G7 summits, trade discussions, and photo ops. Always visible, always intentional, always visible to the camera. And while Canadians freeze in the dark or line up for food banks, she's writing billion-dollar checks to fund a war overseas that has very little to do with us at all, with a foreign symbol that has to do with one of those countries flashing from her hand. Now, that's not really heritage at this point. That's a message. My loyalty lies somewhere else. And like Verbo Kint in The Usual Suspects, with his limp, it's the subtle detail that you overlook until it's far too late. Let's take a look at the Carney Freeland power axis for a second, because when we talk about Mark Carney, there's a lot going on here with Christa Freeland that most people know, but some don't. So let's cover it. Sure, he's Prime Minister now, we got that, but he didn't get there alone, did he? He was groomed, supported, installed, and quietly elevated by likely one person, Christa Freeland, the godmother of his child.
We have known Mark for a very long time. Both of us are from Northern Alberta. And I think Mark is a great Canadian. I am really glad that he has come out as a Liberal. And I'm grateful for any support he can offer our party, our government, and our country.
So have you spoken with him
I speak with Mark often.
about that?
I speak with him often. He's actually my son's godfather.
They're most importantly political allies. She's the godmother of his child. He's the godfather of hers. Freeland didn't lose influence when she stepped down as finance minister. This was all planned. She expanded it. She left the spotlight and embedded herself into a sham of a leadership race and into the core of Carney's administration. Carney talks policy, but Freeland pulls the levers. And just like in The Usual Suspects, when Verbo Kint spins a tale while hiding the truth in plain sight, Freeland does the same. Freeland hides her power in procedure, titles, and quiet smiles. And let's talk about her silence during the election, because she didn't really run a serious leadership campaign. So if you want proof that she's dangerous, well, look no further than the 2025 federal election when, after Mark Carney officially won leadership, she was silent. Where was Freeland? Silent, invisible through the entire campaign, completely off stage. She knew her name was political mud at the moment, and Canadians hadn't forgotten her freezing bank accounts during COVID, or her obsession with foreign aid, or her inflated spending that destroyed our economy with no accountability. So she quite calculatedly disappeared temporarily. She let Carney tell the tale and win the election. But make no mistake, she never, ever left the room. Just like Verbokind, disappearing from the interrogation room in the movie The Usual Suspects, Freeland knew when to be quiet and when to walk out with a win. And that was after she was one of the first people interviewed. Now, if we look even deeper, we have to try to also understand, why does Donald Trump despise her? I mean, Donald Trump doesn't just dislike Christa Freeland. He despises her, and that's a weird take.
I won't say this about Mark, but I didn't like his predecessor. I didn't like a person that worked for. She was terrible, actually. She was a terrible person. And she really hurt that deal very badly because she tried to take advantage of the deal and she didn't get away with it. You know what I'm talking about. But so, you know, we had a bad relationship having to do with the fact that we disagreed with the way they viewed the deal. And we ended it. You know, we ended that relationship pretty much.
He's called her toxic, hostile, that woman, and really has celebrated her exit from the finance ministry. And let's talk about the Graham Bowley connection. Have you ever heard that name? That's her husband. Let's talk about the narrative control that goes along with her husband. You see, Freeland is married to Graham Bowley, a British journalist at the New York Times, one of the most influential anti-Trump media institutions in the entire world. Now, granted, Bowley isn't a war reporter. He's known for uncovering things like art fraud, from things like looted cultural property, global corruption. Interesting. But what matters, though, is access. And Freeland, already embedded in Carney's circle, is also tied to global media power through her husband. She doesn't just write policy, she's connected to the people who write history. And just like Verbokind, who spun his tale from pieces of a bulletin board, Freeland builds stories from the inside, with media, power, and optics all on her side. And she doesn't have to do it in front of the camera. And what about the COVID overreach? Freezing bank accounts. If you still think she's some polite technocrat, think again. Let me remind you what happened in COVID-19. What she did during the Freedom Convoy. Do we remember this? Christa Freeland, as finance minister, invoked the Emergencies Act.
It's about following the money. This is about stopping the financing of these illegal blockades. We are today serving notice. If your truck is being used in these illegal blockades, your corporate accounts will be frozen. The insurance on your vehicle will be suspended. Send your semi-trailers home. The Canadian economy needs them to be doing legitimate work, not to be illegally making us all poorer.
Court has ruled the Liberal government's decision to invoke the Emergencies Act amid the trucker protest in Ottawa in 2022 violated Canada's charter.
We respect very much Canada's independent judiciary. However, we do not agree with this decision, and respectfully, we will be appealing it.
In the ruling, the judge says the move was unreasonable and outside the scope of the law. The case was brought forward by the Canadian Civil Liberties Association.
And froze the bank accounts of Canadian citizens without them going on trial, without any warrants, and without any oversight. People who donated $50 to a protest lost access to their entire savings. Business owners were locked out of their accounts. People couldn't pay rent or buy groceries because Freeland decided they were enemies of the state. She weaponized the financial system, and she wanted to make those powers permanent. Interesting. And if we make that movie comparison again, who was the evil villain that Verbo Kint was talking about? Kaiser Sose. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She just erased people quietly, legally, and completely. Yes, she still holds office too. So let's be clear. Freeland still holds the power. And if you think, well, no, she didn't. She dropped out of the leader's race. Well, she didn't drop out. She lost. She took on a new set of jobs. It's fine. Well, let's think about the jobs she took on. Minister of Transport, controlling your ports, your rail, your air infrastructure, and your logistics. Oh, and Minister of Intergovernmental and Internal Trade. Remember that trade across the country? Managing the regulatory choke points between provinces. If Alberta can't move oil, if BC lumber is stalled, if Ontario housing collapses, it's not a coincidence. It's by design. And she has control of it all. So, you might say, Chris, this does sound conspiratorial, but Canada is broke and she keeps spending. Let me give it to you here. Canada's economy is unraveling as we know it. We now spend more on foreign debt interest than we bring in through taxes. Food banks are collapsing. Seniors are going cold. Veterans are still sleeping on concrete. And this past week, Christa Freeland helped push another $4.3 billion to where? You guessed it, Ukraine.
My perspective, what we should be thinking about in terms of what we want to achieve is three things. One, get some money for Ukraine. It's really important. It's not just like a philosophical, theoretical thing.
You said a lot about why Canada cares, but I want to, if you could just expand for a moment on why you have led a lot of this, why you care and why you have encouraged Canadians generally to care about this issue and make the arguments so strongly and be the first to take such a step in legislation.
Well, you know, Bronwyn, I would actually say it's less about me and more about Canadians. You know, we have some political differences even around this issue in Canada, but I would say actual Canadian people are very clear in the centrality of this issue and the importance of supporting Ukraine. It is hard for me. It rarely does a day pass that someone doesn't come up to me, like on the sidewalk, in an airport boarding lounge, and either say, that's great what you're doing on Ukraine, or more often, that's good, but Canada needs to do more.
Reforms are incomplete. Of course, there is still corruption in Ukraine. And of course, there is increasingly popular dissatisfaction with the government. He said, well, I have this idea. The way we would get rid of corruption is have our whole Supreme Court be staffed by Ukrainian Canadian judges. And I thought he was joking. But look, he has Natalka Yuresko as his Minister of Finance. He has a Lithuanian as his Minister of the Economy and Georgian as his Minister of Health. And he has Saakashvili as the Governor of Odessa and Maria Gaidar as the Deputy Governor. So he understands that that's a great way to break the chain of corruption.
Wearing a Ukrainian trident at the same time on her finger, smiling for the cameras and telling you it's all for peace. That is not leadership. That is misdirection. And if you think, well, Chris, okay, yeah, there's some suspicious stuff looking here, but has she ever really done anything like this before? And now, here's where the entire Freeland myth falls apart. She turns into the villain we may think she truly is. You see, we found a 1988 article from the Edmonton Journal. It profiles Freeland as a 20-year-old Harvard student on exchange in Ukraine, where she was branded by Soviet officials as well-known troublemaker. The KGB followed her. She was interrogated. Christa Freeland. She was accused of anti-Soviet propaganda. She refused to back down. She refused to comply. She even refused to let border agents open her bag. She wasn't some timid student. She wasn't the smiling, Mr. Speaker. She was already a strategic dissident. In her own words, I was incredibly nervous. But she never gave an inch in all of that. That's not the story of a naive academic, a naive finance minister. That's the early footprint of a woman who knows how to blend in, how to manipulate power, and how to vanish with the wind, just like Verbal Kint. And we missed it. She's been building this long before we were paying attention. So let's talk details, because it all comes together after that. Christa Freeland is polite. She smiles. She's careful with her language. She's relentlessly courteous in public. But behind the curtain, the dark curtain, she froze bank accounts. She mentored Mark Carney all the way to power. She funds foreign wars. She controls economic choke points. She embedded herself in media and politics for the last multiple decades. She caused trouble in Russia and Ukraine, and she wears a trizub ring, not as decoration, but as a declaration. You see, in the movie they say, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Freeland has convinced Canadians she's just another minister. But what if she's the one who's been running it all along? You see, Christa Freeland is still here. We thought when she resigned as finance minister, she was gone. But she's still powerful. She's still connected. And she's still shaping your future. She acts like the helper, but she might just be the architect of this whole damn thing. And now the mask is starting to slip. Because when you look back, she was always there. Everywhere. Thanks for watching Bakes on Things. I'm Chris Baker, giving you things to think about here. Obviously, we don't like to get into conspiracy theories or anything like that, but there's some evidence here that's quite concerning. Make of it what you will. We appreciate you watching. Please like, subscribe, comment. And do you agree that this is starting to show that perhaps Christa Freeland is pulling all the strings? Or is this just a bunch of baloney and coincidence? I'll let you decide. Thanks for watching.